And let's be honest, they lied to you, didn't they? They lied to me, they lied to you, they lied to all of us. They said it would be country first and party second. But all they've proven to us is that they are, what, somehow better than the Tories, but they can produce exactly the same morally bankrupt politics of the previous government in record-breaking time. That's the only thing they've been better at. Starmer shouldn't just resign. The whole lot of them should be booted out of office. I say this. Call a general election now and give the public what they really want, a change of... Good evening, everybody. Well, the party is over, Keir Starmer.
The party's over, Prime Minister. The only question is, will the British public kick him out, will his party kick him out, or will he do the decent thing and resign?
Yeah! And,
Right, buckle up, because British politics has just descended into absolute chaos. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, barely 18 months into his premiership, is fighting for his political life. Anonymous briefings, coup rumours, cabinet ministers being accused of plotting against him, and the health secretary at the centre of it, all denying everything, whilst number 10 goes into full panic mode. This isn't just another Westminster drama. This is a Prime Minister watching his authority crumble in real time, and the knives are absolutely out. Stay right here, because what's happening behind those Downing Street doors could determine who runs Britain within months. Quick favour, if you're already gripped by this political carnage, hit that subscribe button right now. Over 92% of you haven't yet. It's completely free, takes 1 second, and genuinely means everything to us. Cheers if you did. Right, let's dive into this spectacular meltdown. So here's what we know, and honestly, it reads like a political thriller, except it's all horrifyingly real. On Tuesday evening, unnamed sources, allegedly senior Starmer aides, briefed the Guardian newspaper with an extraordinary warning. Any attempt to remove the Prime Minister, they said, would be reckless and dangerous. Not just politically inconvenient, dangerous. They claim that deposing Starmer so early in his term would undermine financial markets, reverberate through the stock market, damage the Labour Party and wreck Britain's international relationships. The party would not recover for a generation, one unnamed source dramatically declared. But here's the truly explosive part. These same number 10 sources admitted they're concerned about rumours that Health Secretary Wes Streeting could be planning a coup against a sitting Prime Minister who won a landslide election barely over a year ago. They claimed Streeting has gathered significant backing and is just one of several Labour ministers who are on manoeuvres, positioning themselves to take the leadership if the opportunity arises. The most likely moment for a challenge? After the autumn budget on November 26th, if higher taxes are announced, or after May elections next year, if Labour performs catastrophically. Now, if you're thinking this sounds like panicked briefing from a Prime Minister who's losing control, you'd be absolutely right. Because here's what makes this so spectacularly stupid. The moment you brief the media that you're worried about a coup, you've essentially announced to the entire world that your position is vulnerable. You've given oxygen to rumours that might have remained whispers. You've made yourself look weak, paranoid and desperate. Spectacular own goal, really. And Wes Streeting's response? Absolute denial. On Wednesday morning, he told journalists he was not challenging the Prime Minister and not doing any of the things some silly briefer said overnight. He even said whoever was responsible for the briefing should be sacked, adding, but he's got to find them first, and I wouldn't expect him to waste loads of time on this. Which is politician speak for good luck with that, mate, because it definitely wasn't me. But someone in your inner circle is absolutely throwing you under the bus. Streeting went further, saying, there are people around the Prime Minister who do not follow his model and style of leadership. Translation? Your own team is briefing against you, Prime Minister. Your house is not in order. Your closest advisors are creating chaos, and everyone knows it.
Own words. Keir Starmer will never be remembered for his achievements because, frankly, there aren't many. But he will be remembered for being a prophet of his own downfall. And that downfall seems likely to be merely months away because there is now a traitor's plot, a coup, taking place in Downing Street.
By Thursday, Starmer was forced to address the media storm himself whilst visiting North Wales. He declared that briefings against ministers are completely unacceptable and claimed he'd been assured that no briefing against ministers was done from Number 10. But then he undermined his own statement by adding, "But I have made it clear that I find it absolutely unacceptable." So which is it, Prime Minister? Did it happen or didn't it? Because you can't simultaneously claim it didn't happen from Number 10 whilst also finding it unacceptable. That's having your political cake and eating it too, except everyone can see you're choking on the crumbs. And here's the truly devastating statistic that explains why all of this is happening. In YouGov's most recent poll on Tuesday of 4,989 people polled, only 27% thought Starmer should continue as Labour Party leader. 27%. That's not just bad. That's catastrophic. That's barely a quarter of the country thinking you should keep your job. For context, that's worse than some of the most unpopular prime ministers in modern British history during their lowest moments. But the chaos doesn't stop there. By Friday, the Financial Times was citing unnamed ministers claiming that support for streeting was actually growing following the news of the unsanctioned briefing. Which is absolutely brilliant irony, isn't it? The briefing designed to kill off coup rumours has actually increased support for the alleged coup leader. You genuinely couldn't make this up, and streeting isn't the only name being mentioned.
To the Prime Minister.
I say to you directly, my government will serve you. Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second.
Yeah, that didn't last.
Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood and Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, who was Labour leader before and knows exactly what it takes to run the party, are both reportedly being discussed as potential contenders. The field is wide open. The speculation is rampant. And Starmer's authority is evaporating by the hour. Professor Nicholas Allen from Royal Holloway University in London explained that the briefing revealed genuine concern, at least in some quarters, that Starmer is vulnerable, which is professorial understatement for, yes, people are absolutely plotting and everyone knows it. Allen pointed out that achieving a leadership election would be difficult because Labour Party rules require a contender to have support from 20% of MPs to be nominated. But he added something crucial. Streeting probably couldn't force Starmer out by himself. What would be more likely is a collapse in support within the party, fuelled by low poll ratings and unforced errors like this briefing, and Starmer either deciding to step down or being encouraged to go by senior ministers. At that point, the field would be open. And streeting may or may not be the perceived saviour. So let's talk about who might actually be behind this spectacular act of political self-harm. The British press is speculating that the unofficial briefing may have been organised by Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. McSweeney, who has been widely credited with helping Starmer win the July 2024 election, is now facing calls to resign from unnamed members of Parliament. And the theory goes that McSweeney organised the briefing as a tactic designed to put off any ministers thinking about challenging Starmer. Except if that was the plan, it's backfired spectacularly, because now McSweeney looks like either an incompetent strategist who doesn't understand how briefings work or a panicked advisor trying to protect a prime minister whose position is genuinely under threat. And Starmer's response when asked about McSweeney? He said he, of course, has complete confidence in his Chief of Staff, which in Westminster speak is the kiss of death. Because every single time a Prime Minister says they have complete confidence in someone, that person is usually gone within weeks. It's practically a political law of nature at this point. Meanwhile, the opposition parties are having an absolute field day.
Were pushed, and they've only been in office for 16 months. But don't worry, everyone, because there's someone coming to save us all. The incorruptible beam of morality Angela Rayner. Yes, she's back. She's had a few bottles of Prosecco on the beach at Brighton, had a few puffs of her old vape, had taxpayer-funded security help move her and her boyfriend out of the last boxes of that old Grayson favour flat. And amongst all of that hard work she's been doing, she's also been plotting a coup. Just a few weeks ago, she was giving her resignation speech to Parliament, met with almost a full chamber of Labour front and back benches, all paying homage to her. Their only hope now, clearly, is a disgraced former Deputy Prime Minister who achieved absolutely nothing while she had her hands on the reins of power. That's, of course, other than closing a new deal on her VAT-busting second home.
Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch used Wednesday's Prime Minister's questions to absolutely savage Starmer, calling him a weak Prime Minister at war with his own cabinet. She asked 2 weeks before the budget, isn't it the case that this Prime Minister has lost control of government, he's lost control of his party and lost the trust of the British people? Which must have stung because it's demonstrably true on at least 2 of those 3 counts. Badenoch also referenced an interview Streeting gave to the BBC in which he accused Downing Street of having a toxic culture. She asked Starmer directly if his minister was correct. Starmer's response: any attack on any member of my cabinet is completely unacceptable. Which doesn't actually answer the question, does it? He didn't say Downing Street doesn't have a toxic culture. He just said attacks on cabinet members are unacceptable. That's deflection, not denial. And then there's Reform UK, the far-right party that's been surging in popularity. Their head of policy, Zia Yusuf, wrote on social media that the terrifying thing about the coup against Starmer is that Labour members will choose his replacement. He claimed their favourite Labour minister is Ed Miliband and added, some of the most unhinged people in the country will choose the next Prime Minister. Which is inflammatory rhetoric designed to stoke fear, but it also reveals how seriously even opposition parties are taking these coup rumours. They're not dismissing this as Westminster gossip. They're treating it as a genuine possibility. So what does all of this actually mean for British politics? Well, we're potentially watching a Prime Minister's authority collapse in slow motion. Starmer won a massive majority in July 2024. Labour has a commanding position in Parliament. They should be unstoppable. And yet here we are, barely 18 months later, with anonymous briefings about coups, ministers denying plots, advisers under pressure to resign, and poll numbers that would make any politician consider early retirement.
This whole rotten government, this rotten Labour Party is teetering on the brink. Rachel Reeves, the so-called self-dubbed Iron Chancellor, caught red-handed breaking the law on her housing arrangements, bungling the economy while she's at it. Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, booted out for fraud. The Housing Minister and Deputy Prime Minister resigning in disgrace over breaking the law on her second home purchase. And then we've got an anti-corruption minister booted out over corruption claims. Then we've got the homelessness minister sacked for making people homeless. And of course, to top it all off, we've got a deputy prime minister who was once the top diplomat in this country as foreign secretary, allegedly leaving a cab in France looking like...
The problem for Starmer is that modern politics moves at breakneck speed. Social media amplifies every controversy. The 24-hour news cycle demands constant content, and voters have absolutely no patience for politicians who seem weak, indecisive, or unable to control their own parties. Margaret Thatcher survived for years despite controversy because she projected strength. Tony Blair commanded his party with an iron fist for a decade. But Starmer? He's got unnamed briefers undermining him, ministers publicly criticising Downing Street's culture, and colleagues positioning themselves for his job whilst pretending they're doing nothing of the sort. The autumn budget, on November 26th, could be make or break. If Starmer announces unpopular tax rises, if the economic forecasts are grim, if Labour MPs start getting angry constituent feedback, that could be the moment when quiet plotting becomes open rebellion. and May elections next year. If Labour performs poorly, if they lose council seats, if the narrative becomes Starmer can't win anymore, then all bets are off. Leadership challenges happen when MPs believe their leader is an electoral liability, when they think they'll lose their own seats if nothing changes, when self-preservation overrides party loyalty. The irony in all of this is absolutely delicious. Labour spent years watching Conservative Prime Ministers implode. They watched Boris Johnson brought down by scandal. They watched Liz Truss last 49 days. They watched Rishi Sunak struggle with party management. And they probably thought, we'll be different, we'll be competent, and we'll be united. And now here they are. Barely 18 months into government with exactly the same problems. Anonymous briefings, leadership speculation, cabinet tensions, plummeting poll numbers. It turns out governing is hard, regardless of which party you represent. What happens next? Honestly, nobody knows. Starmer could steady the ship, deliver a successful budget, and make all of this look like a temporary storm. Or this could be the beginning of the end, the moment historians point to when they explain how Starmer's premiership collapsed. Leadership challenges often feel impossible right up until they suddenly happen. Loyalty holds right up until it doesn't. Support remains solid until it evaporates overnight. One thing certain, though, Starmer's authority has been damaged. His team has been exposed as dysfunctional. His ministers are positioning themselves and his poll numbers are catastrophic. That's not a recipe for long-term political survival. That's a Prime Minister on borrowed time, hoping something changes before his party decides they've had enough. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.